Oh, welcome back. This is the Only in Miami show, and you can find us online at onlyinmiami.co. We are here live in studio with Miami Mayor Tomas Regalado. Mr. Regalado, thank you so much for joining us on the program
thank you
tonight.
for inviting me.
Well, it's been a very interesting week in politics, don't you think?
Yes, it has, and it still is.
Yes, that's right. Tomorrow's Election Day.
Right.
And last week, Salem Communications, this radio network, was one of the sponsors of the Republican debate, which was held in Miami. And they gave you the opportunity to ask a question. So please tell our audience a little bit about why you decided to ask Marco Rubio specifically about climate change.
Well, first, if I can, let me tell the audience and tell you that this dates back to January. In January, several mayors of cities with waterfront property, we wrote a letter to Marco Rubio and Governor Jeb Bush. And that letter, we asked them to talk about climate change, but especially sea level rise. We never got a response. So when the mayors, and that includes Mayor Cason of Gables, Cindy Lerner, Pinecrest, and Stoddard from South Miami, Cutler Bay, Palmetto Bay. So we all signed that letter, and we sent that letter to CNN. And I was really surprised when Jake, the moderator, called my office and said, listen, it was 2 days before the debate. Listen, you wrote a letter, you signed a letter. And I said, yes, along with other mayors. And if I can ask a question about sea level rise, what would be the question? So I told them that at least we want them to acknowledge that there is an issue with sea level rise. And the reason I did that, Grant, is because in Paris, the only city represented in South Florida was the city of Miami in the COP22 meeting. And by the way, it was said at the conference that the area with the most assets exposed to sea level rise is the greater Miami area in the world. Not in Florida.
We're number one.
So we're back on number one.
Not maybe where we want to be, number one.
Right. But
yeah.
and then I said, well, that is the question that I would ask if I could. And he said, okay, I'll try. So I didn't know if he was going to be able to ask that question, but he did. And I was watching on TV and I was, wow, kind of surprised.
Well, did you realize that was the first climate change question asked in 10 GOP debates?
Right. And that's, CNN had the courage to ask that. I mean, they could have used their time to ask about, well, what do you call baby Marcos or Cruz is a baby or whatever. But they did spend time. So you got to hand it to CNN. They did the right thing. I think that there's never been, like you said, a conversation about sea level rise in the Republican debates for month and month and month.
Here we are at debate number 10. A quarter of the votes are cast, and a quarter will be cast tomorrow. And this is the first time it's even popped on the radar. And I actually spoke with Mayor Jimenez today and got this quote, which I'd like to share with you and our audience. Miami-Dade County has been aggressively working to adapt to the impacts of climate change and sea level for nearly 30 years. Mayor Jimenez and his administration are leading projects such as the $13.5 billion water and sewer modernization project, as well as incorporating sea level rise into the construction of all structures in Miami-Dade County. And he's also a member of the Republican Party as well.
Well, Miami-Dade County wasn't represented in Paris.
Yeah.
And that's a shame because we should have been. The governor wasn't represented in the Paris conference. That is a shame.
Well, we both know, you and I.
Yeah.
But maybe the listening audience doesn't know. Maybe you don't know out there that the governor of Florida denies climate change and banned the words climate change.
But the thing is
from his administration.
The thing is that I believe that we are the only local government, including the county, that has a sea level rise committee in the city of Miami. As a matter of fact, they're meeting tonight, and what they are proposing is several things. Number one, mitigation. Number two, zoning changes. This is a political hot potato because developers are not going to like what those zoning changes would be, but we have to do it, and we have to do it. Look, I'm term limited, so I'm leaving. I'm leaving
next
in 2
year.
years.
Next year and a half.
A year and a half. So, but I think it will be very bad for me to just say, well, the next one will do this, or the next one, or the next one. My 3 children were born here. My 4 grandchildren were born here, and I want them to stay. I want to die here. So this is the thing we're putting money in that committee for the members to decide on what to do in the research. We're applying to the Rockefeller Foundation to be one of the 100 resilient cities and get a grant and do something. So we're doing things, but I think it's not enough.
Were you satisfied with Marco Rubio's answer to your question?
I was kind of satisfied, and I'll tell you why. Because he mentioned mitigation. And I think that mitigation is the first step. I understand that is a bad political question because of the audience that they appeal when they say we cannot pass laws and we cannot say this and say that. But at least, Grant, I felt that we were able to put this in the national conversation, and now hopefully whoever is the nominee, hopefully not Mr. Trump, whoever is the nominee would have to somehow address the issue in Florida. When the candidates come to drink coffee in Versailles, somebody has to ask them about sea level rise.
Well, Marco Rubio did not give a very positive answer.
No, he did not.
He said the word mitigation, but he spoke for over 2 minutes, and he said things like, America is not a planet. Miami is a swamp. Maybe we should question if we're supposed to live here. He's from here, nominally speaking. He does have a very, very close connection to Nevada, as we've all read about. But for a native of Miami, do you think that that's how the majority of people in Miami feel? That
no, I don't think so.
Maybe we shouldn't all live here?
Well, I think that the people in Miami still think that sea level rise is something that will happen 50 years from now or 100 years from now. Now, what the people of Miami understand is flooding. And we had flooding when we had the king tide several months ago.
Yeah, in October.
Biscayne Boulevard was flooded. Several cars were damaged. Coconut Grove was flooded. So they understand flooding, and they understand that that's one of the worst things that could happen. And to those assets that we have throughout the Brickell Corridor, Biscayne Corridor, it's very important. So mitigation with the help of the federal government, it's important. I think that
but that's exactly what Marco Rubio opposed, the help of the federal government. There are millions of people, not just in Miami, who live in flood zones all across the United States. In fact, much of Florida is built on floodplains. But even in the Midwest, when there's a flood on the Mississippi River, the premiums that are paid in Florida are being sent out to Mississippi. Why is it that the Republican Party and it's one of its standard barriers, one of its final four, Marco Rubio, are not clearly in favor of mitigation, and not just mitigation on the ground?
Well, I think that he was in favor of mitigation. I think that the rest of the answer was there's nothing else we can do and something. What I'm disappointed is that Mr. Ted Cruz, Senator Cruz, or Donald Trump just stay quiet. And the only one that chimed in was Governor Kasich with something that was very positive. So we got 2 out of the 4 contenders talking about mitigation and sea level rise.
But, I mean, really only one of them, Governor Kasich, has a comprehensive outlook. Mr. Rubio is very defensive about all
It
this.
is.
And mitigation, that's not something we can do forever, is it? Don't we have to change what's underlying the problem at some point?
Yes, but it's something we need to do now. And we need to do it next year, and we need to do it in 2 years and 5 years, because if not, it's going to cut up with us. Something else that we need to do, it's to fix the Everglades. And there's no serious conversation about fixing the Everglades, because if we don't fix the Everglades, then we're going to be a swamp here in downtown Miami.
There's both problems. And I'll tell you what, we're going to take a very short break.
Okay.
And we'll be right back. This is the Only in Miami show. Welcome back. This is the Only in Miami show, and I'm your host, Grant Stern. You can find me on Twitter at Grant Stern and everything about the show at www.onlyinmiami.co. iTunes, podcast, SoundCloud, and a whole lot more. Check it out at onlyinmiami.co. And we're back live with Mayor of Miami, Tomas Regalado. Mayor Regalado, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we're discussing climate change, and there's another issue that's not really in the presidential purview, and it's not in the city purview, but it's certainly important to everybody who lives in Miami and definitely beyond, especially in Florida, and that's solar energy.
Right.
Does the city have...
But then there is FPL.
Then there is FPL. We are the Sunshine State, and FPL has demolished all incentives to create solar energy here. What can we do about this? What do you think we can do about this?
Well, what I think we should do it's to petition our state legislature. The city of Miami at this moment is litigating against FPL. We filed a complaint with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. We are in court. We have filed several suits because of the canals and because of the high lines that they want to place throughout US 1.
The high power lines they want to put all the way down the main street of Miami-Dade.
All the way down from Turkey Point through Miami. Imagine we have 5.5 miles of these lines going through residential and commercial.
But they would go through 25 or 30 miles of territory all the way down south.
But then, the governor, the cabinet, the Public Service Commission, the state legislature seems to be absent of this conversation. So we have to do something in terms of mobilizing the people, and we can do it through the media. When we file a complaint against FPL and their plan to build another 2 more reactor, we had several hundreds of people that supported us. So that's in Washington. So we need to get the state legislature to allow the municipalities to do their own energy. I mean, we have solar powers at City Hall. We can't use it. We have built...
Oh, you're not allowed to sell back to the grid.
Right, exactly. We have built several homes in the West Grove and in Liberty City. You know, Habitat for Humanity with land given by the city and all that with solar power. They are not allowed it. And if they buy it cheaper than they sell it to the people. So it's not cost efficient.
Well, I mean, you mentioned another problem with FPL, which is that they are dumping a radioactive material into Biscayne Bay.
Right. And they said, don't worry about it.
Well, you know what? FPL says don't worry about that nuclear material they're dumping into the bay.
No, but I heard elected officials say, well, it's not that bad. I have heard that on the radio.
But are they swimming in that water when they say it's not that bad? Are they fishing in that water when they say it's not that bad?
No, they don't. Nor drinking. But I think I think that we should do a popular campaign to get solar power on. Now, we are supposed to vote in November about solar power, but to tell you the truth, I don't think that even you and I know in which are we going to vote, because
there's competing amendments.
Competing amendments.
One
that
is
are
the
tricky.
good amendment. One is the bad amendment.
So what does it mean? It means that it's not going to get the 60% required to change the Constitution. So we're out of luck. So FPL won. So I think that it has to come from the grassroots campaign that we will be able to do more solar power. It's very expensive, Grant. It's very expensive.
Oh, yeah, it is.
And, if somebody want to do that, yes, it's because it's the right thing to do, but it's not cost efficient.
Well, solar is the right thing to do, but that goes back to the heart of the problem.
Right.
The problem when discussing sea level rise and climate change with the deniers, which is that there's a cause for the problem.
There is a cause for the problem. And
Isn't that our global greenhouse gases?
Right. And it is. And the answer is, well, Donald Trump said, well, the Chinese are those. So what are we going to do? We're going to build another wall in China so we don't get the gas emission. So, but as
maybe he's going to promise that next.
Yeah, maybe. But as we speak, we're building a huge pump station in Mary Brickell Village. Now, that pump station is not going to pump water into the river or the bay. It's going to inject the water from rain about 150 feet below. So why are we doing that? It's more expensive. It's about $6 million.
So it's going to clean the water? And
exactly.
Then
it's going to clean the water. But we cannot do it alone. We need federal money. We need mitigation. That's mitigation.
Well, has Senator Rubio worked on anything to help bring federal money to Miami for mitigation?
None of the congressmen, I think Democrats or Republicans, have been able to bring money into South Florida to do that. Our esteemed state legislature has not done anything. And if next year we decide to ask our loving team, ask for mitigation, probably I don't know, because we have elections now, so next year they don't care. So probably we'll get some money, but it will be vetoed by the governor. So we're kind of in a bind here,
Yeah, it is difficult to operate without the money from upstairs, because that's how our system works.
But
we
look,
pool money from all over the country to take care of problems that may be local.
Yeah, and the thing is that we have been left alone as a city. We don't have support of the county. We don't have support of the state. We don't have support of the federal government. Now we are investing money in mitigation of doing these pumps. We are rising the shoreline throughout the city of Miami. It costs a lot of money. We are pumping money into the Sea Level Rise Committee so they can do more research. But there is, up to a point, we can do something. I mean, we don't have billions of dollars to do this. And we are a donor city. we donate more to the state and to the federal government than
Then
we
bring
get back.
It's a very, very difficult position to be in.
Hey, but it's fun. We fight.
Well, do you have any parting thoughts for our audience? We got 1 minute left.
Well, I think, Grant, that it's important that you have this conversation. I think it was important, like you said, in none of the debates we were able to talk about sea level rise. So at least CNN did it. I hope that the next nominee for the Republican and for the Democrat, when they come here to Miami, will be addressing that issue and not punching people in the face.
So before we go, did you make an endorsement in tomorrow's race?
I support Marco Rubio. And I support Marco Rubio because I support him for many things. Number one, he understands small cities.
And who do you think is going to win? It's winner takes all.
I have no idea. I have no idea who's going to win. If I have to bet, I think it will be something very close between Trump and Rubio in the state of Florida.
Well, Mayor Regalado, thank you so much for joining us on the program tonight.
You're welcome.
It's
Thank
been
you.
my pleasure. And we'll be back next month.